Welcome in back on today's show. We have my special guest. We have Tristan Harris. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's really good to be back.
Yes, it's quite exciting. I know you've just released a new single following up from your Cherry Popped album, and your new single is
Yep.
called Anesthesia. That's quite an intriguing song title.
Yeah, well, it's heavily inspired and it's a rewritten, completely changed version of a typo negative song. Who I didn't really know about until a couple of years ago, and then a friend introduced me to them, and I've kind of gone a bit crazy about them. But this is the first time musically that I've been experimenting with lots of bass guitars. So I've got three bass guitars on this track, two of which are in the same key, and then one playing subharmonic. So it's very bassy, very heavy, but it's also completely different to everything else I've done so far. It's much cleaner, but very, very dark in its theme.
That's ace. And Anesthesia, I did look into actually. Does it have kind of like a Greek background?
I can tell you. It's anesthetic, so it's used for medicine. So quite possibly is Greek or Asian of origin. I'm sure.
If I'm correct, it does mean without sensation.
Yeah, well, that's what it does. That's what. So the song is kind of about someone dealing with addictions and dealing with problems, and they're trying to connect to someone else, and then that person not giving them anything back, and they're kind of feeling like they're on anesthesia as a result. That's kind of where it is. It's a lot more complex than that. But.
Yeah, and the track is a nice 6 minutes in length. The listener certainly does get good value for it.
Yeah, so it's I've got into this habit of making really long songs, and I don't know why. I think it's because I always feel like there's just more that I can get out of a song. So I start making something, and then I'm like, oh, I need to take this further, and then I need to take it a bit further than that, and then I'm like, no, I need to stop it now before I just get too carried away. So but it doesn't. I feel like it's one of those songs that it's kind of split up into segments, so it doesn't feel like it's as long as it is, which is quite nice.
I suppose if you're enjoying it, you probably won't notice how long the length of the song is.
Yeah, like, for example, it doesn't have a chorus, so it doesn't actually have anything repetitive about it all the way through. And like the chord progressions at the start change in the middle, and then they change again at the end, and they don't come back to each other at all. So the song doesn't really go back on itself at all. It's just constantly going forwards.
And Only Desire Fuels the Fire is a lyric from the track. That certainly makes one think.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, that means a lot about, like, I find it hard. This is one of the key connection points for this song for me, is I find it really hard to get involved or be interested or sit through something if it's not something that I'm passionate about. Like for example, when I go back to school, I was academically very smart. I was very gifted academically, but I just didn't find it interesting or intriguing. It wasn't something. But then there were certain elements which I find really interesting. Like I was absolutely focused on human biology and could not care less about plants. Right. And that's just kind of the way it was. I kind of just switched around all the time. So to fuel the fire in me, musically wise or anything else, I really need to care about it. I could go and make a song of any genre and I can make it decent, but it's only going to be special if it's actually something that that gets my fire going.
And when you hear like original artists, the listener always kind of is reminded by other artists. You might hear like ingredients of an influence. I detect hints of Nirvana, maybe a bit of Metallica in there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Nirvana, definitely. There's a lot of Nirvana in my stuff. I mean, there's a lot. It's quite surprisingly, Metallica generally hasn't been a massive influence for me. But there is one song I'm working on right now, which is currently titled, it's a provisional title. It might not be the final title. It's currently called The Devil and I. And it's very Nothing Else Matters style. It's got a very, very similar kind of clean guitar, plucky intro, and then it goes really heavy with some like heavily chordy, distorted guitars, and it's really cool. And I've got a guest vocalist that's going to feature on that as well, which is going to be really cool.
That's ace. And just an observation, when you see guitarists on, on stage or on the TV, some use plectrum, some just use their bare hands. Which do you like to do?
My weapon of choice would be a plectrum. In fact, I always keep one in the back of my guitar, in my phone case, ready for emergencies. But I can play without.
Okay.
There are times when you need to and times when you don't. Like in my song Black and Blue, all the verses I'm using my fingers, and then in the choruses I'm using the pick. So
I guess mix and match then.
yeah.
And is music what you do full time, or is it just at the moment as a kind of recreation, a hobby, or something that you would like to
Kind
pursue
of
further?
both. Kind of both. Really, it's I've got a load of I'm getting a load of gigs coming up in the summer, so I've got 5 gigs in June, and then I've got a potential gig in July as well. So that'll be bringing more money. And obviously, in the last year or so, it's been pretty much impossible to make money in music.
And
Even if you're massive, it's pretty much impossible.
true. And speaking of hobbies and recreation, what do you like doing in your spare time? A little birdie tells me you're a Star Wars fan, a massive Star Wars fan.
Oh, huge! Probably the biggest Star Wars fan ever. I mean, I would be incredibly disappointed in myself if I failed a Star Wars trivia question. But yeah, so yes, anything Star Wars. I mean, the Bad Batch started today. It's May the 4th for the people watching as we're filming this. So I've already watched that. But other than that, I mean, I'm a big gamer. I mean, I'm also building a guitar at the moment, which that takes up a lot of my time. It's almost finished. I'm talking to some people to help me finish the last bit because I'm kind of stuck, and then someone to help me paint it.
And finally, is there anyone in the industry you like to collaborate with, which haven't done so already, on stage?
On stage, oh, I mean, I would love to say that it would be a dream to play with Slash, but at the same time, I think I would actually get nervous then. I don't think I'd be able to play. I think a slightly more realistic one would be Zakk Wylde. I'd love that. That would be amazing. But to be honest, I'm friends with a few people locally around here who have got connections in and around, and through mutual connections, I have a slight indirect connection to Ginger Wildheart and the Wildhearts, and I would love to do something with them because they're super cool, and that's a much more realistic goal.
That's great. Well, thank you very much, Tristan Harris, for the catch-up interview. We're now going to play your new track on the show, and best of luck with this record.
Cool. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.